Hi, I'm GM Matthew Sadler.
And I'm WIM Natasha Regan. Welcome to this video, which continues our series of AlphaZero's games in the English opening. In this video, Stockfish is playing black and playing a hedgehog, and AlphaZero is white and plays a novelty. It arises from a TCEC opening, hedgehog up to move 10. And it's appropriate enough we're showing it you today because the Computer World Chess Championship, TCEC, is happening now, although this game wasn't part of TCEC. In the opening, AlphaZero plays very aggressively, and instead of the F4, AlphaZero plays G4 with a kingside attack. Stockfish also defends actively, and in the end, a draw by perpetual check happens. Another interesting thing is seeing what the computers that were inspired by AlphaZero also do in this position. And at the end of the video, we will show you Leela's approach, which is also to play G4.
Yeah, that's a very sharp game from the, I think it's the season 15 Superfinal of the TCEC. So very interesting game as well. So we'll have a look at that. Okay, let's get into the game. Okay, let's get into the game. So, AlphaZero is white, Stockfish is black, and the first 10 moves, as Natasha said, were stipulated by, a TCEC opening book. So how did that look? Well, it was one knight f3. Don't worry, it does transpose into the English. c4, there we are, we're in English. e6, g3. And if black waits long enough, plays something like bishop e7, for example, then white will play d4 and go back into a Queen's Indian g3 system, but one in which a lot of black possibilities have been avoided. So, for example, early bishop a6 systems or stuff like that. So this is quite a subtle move order, just to try and get a good d4 opening, or and also narrow down the possibilities for the opponent. So the way that the black tries to counter that or exploit that for himself is to play c5. So getting in c5 before white plays d4, and then now if white plays d4, black can play c takes d4, which you wouldn't normally be able to do in a Queen's Indian. So the game continues: knight c3, bishop e7, and now this important move, rook e1. So the basic idea is that after d4, white would really, after c takes d4, want to take back with a knight. But now the bishops would get exchanged, which, sort of flattens out white's initiative. So what white is doing here is playing e4 first, and only after white has closed the a8 h1 diagonal does white play d4, and then he's able to take back with a knight. And then black plays queen c7 here, which is move 10.
So this is the position where the given ends, and the engines start thinking for themselves.
That's right. That's exactly right. So, actually, in this position, there are a huge amount of opening subtleties. Black can choose to delay even a6, castle early, castle very late, play the knight to c6, play the knight to d7. There's a myriad of possibilities, and if you're interested in those subtleties, then there's an excellent book by the Russian Grandmaster Sergei Shipov, called The Complete Hedgehog, which I think actually it's not just one book, it's several volumes, which really talks a lot about this. For the moment, AlphaZero plays the normal move, bishop e3.
It's funny throughout this game that white doesn't attempt to defend the pawn on c4 at all, and black doesn't take it until quite late in the game.
No, that's right. It's the point about it is that after queen c4, well, there's a lot of dangers involved. There's an e4 to e5, attacking the knight and opening up the attack of the bishop on b7, and there's also rook c1, when the black queen is rather embarrassed. So this c4 pawn doesn't actually have to be defended for quite a long while. And AlphaZero makes complete use of this. So in this position, Stockfish makes the choice of castling, which is absolutely fine. I mean, it's one of the many possibilities. Just the specific point of this is to keep the c6 square open for the black queen's knight. So rather than putting it on the normal hedgehog square d7, you can also put it to c6. And here AlphaZero does its stuff.
Yeah, typically in this position, white would play a move like f4, but AlphaZero here plays g4.
Exactly.
Really going for a kingside advance.
Exactly, g4. It's a very, very, very quick advance, and the idea behind it is to actually attack the black king side with g5 and then h4 to h5 and maybe then h6, and to leave the f pawn at home for a long time. And this is very unusual. I mean, there have been a few games with this, and Shipov mentions one game in his book, but it's really very, very unusual. And I mean, looks extremely dangerous as well. Now, I mean, the specific point of playing g4 in this position is that if black then tries to put the knight on d7, then white is ready to play g5, and that knight on f6 has only got the rather miserable square e8 to retreat to. So, but Stockfish makes use of its flexibility and will end up putting the knight on c6, and which allows the knight to retreat to d7 when it's chased by g4, g5. But first of all, Stockfish plays a novelty, actually, but a very typical hedgehog move, which is to play the move h6.
So clearly looking to slow down white's advance with g5.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very typical hedgehog thing. I mean, the idea of the hedgehog is that you put all your pawns on the third rank like that, and then white, tries to expand and reach out towards you. And then just at the crucial moment, you strike back with either a queenside push like b5 or a central push like d5 or e5, even as a pawn sacrifice. And actually, in his younger years, Michael Adams was a really good hedgehog player. I think there's a very famous game he played against Grandmaster James Plaskett. I think in the British Championship a long time ago, where James, very attacking player, is really going for it, and Michael comes up with a little e6 to e5 push that really ruins white's position. So here as well, with h6, you're saying, well, if you play g5, you're going to have weakened your king. Otherwise, well, you're going to have to move some more pawns, and then they'll be able to hit you afterwards. But AlphaZero is not afraid of being hit. So it plays the follow-up move now, f4.
AlphaZero thinks it's got a 56% expected score from this position. So only just marginally better than the starting position, but it still thinks it's got a plus.
Exactly. I mean, it's a very AlphaZero move, this, because none of my other engines are really very interested in that move. I play quite a few engine games always, from all these positions, just to get a feel of what other engines would have wanted to play. And Rook C1, which is, by the way, also a very sensible move, was the main idea. I think also worth mentioning that one of the things that I was quite interested in was you could maybe even try the move h4 still, and after knight h7, which was an engine suggestion, then maybe even just g5 and just sacrifice the pawn like that. And there's loads of interesting stuff in this position, that sort of comes to light because of this interesting thrust g4. But AlphaZero plays the move f4. So g5 is still coming in, so Stockfish uses the flexibility it held for itself when it played castles, and plays knight c6. And AlphaZero keeps on going with g5, takes, knight d7, and queen h5. Well, it doesn't really look like an English opening, does it? It looks more like a Najdorf Sicilian, to be honest. Or a Scheveningen Sicilian with a Keres attack, which is always a quick g4 to g5. Yeah, I mean, what is white planning to do here? Well, I mean, there's loads of possibilities. G5 to g6 is one. There's always the typical Sicilian sacrifices, with knight to d5. and then knight to f5, or knight to f5 first and knight to d5. There's possible sacrifices against e6, and there's also some sort of plan of transferring a rook to the h-file and mating black along the h-file. So there's lots for black to worry about. What Stockfish manages to do, again, this is fantastic defense from Stockfish, manages to combine the defense of its king with some sort of counterattack, actually just with its queen only, in which it's going to try and really probe the white position and gradually chip away at its solidity. All the while, trying to hold the white pieces at bay on the king side. It's very, very interesting defense. And it starts with this move, knight ce5. So black is trying to, both still attacking the c4 pawn now again, and it can also play g6. And if you were to give black, 3 moves, or even 4 moves, then black would play rook e8, bishop f8, g6, and bishop g7. Consolidating its king side, and also, getting the bishop on e7 active. Very typical also idea in the Najdorf Sicilian. So, there's plenty of attacking ideas in this position, but AlphaZero plays a move that really surprised me and that took me a little while to understand what it was really trying to do. It played the move.
He played rook to d1.
Exactly, rook to d1, and it's a little bit. It looks, it feels just a little bit like a not very relevant move. After all, you're looking on the king side, and you're just playing this, this looks like this consolidating central move. I was looking at moves like, for example, rook f1, getting the rook attacking the f-file, and also looking for rook f4 to h4. One interesting idea, I think rook e8. I thought was the best for black. And one interesting idea here is to even play rook takes f7, knight takes f7, and rook f1. Threatening queen f7. We also threaten knight takes e6, and there's also the little matter of g6 as well, which is very dangerous. But here, my engine's main line is knight takes g5, knight takes e6, knight e6, queen f7, with a draw by perpetual. So king h8, queen h5 check. So that's dangerous, but not. There's no immediate win there. The other thing that I was interested in was this move, bishop h3, which we will see a little bit later as well. Actually, I just want to take on e6, and after fe6, bishop takes e6, which is really dangerous. But it seems that black can just play a quiet move like rook e8, and after knight takes e6, and it plays this move queen c4. And there's no real easy follow-up for white in this position. Plenty of interesting ideas, but black's doing pretty fine as well. AlphaZero's move keeps all these options in reserve, but this move rook d1 is actually aiming to play a regrouping with bishop c1 and then rook e3 to h3. And
powerful if he gets that in.
Yeah, it looks very dangerous. And the reason you play rook d1 is that, when you play bishop c1, you cover the d3 square, which is a very irritating invasion square for black's knight. You defend the knight on d4, which will be undefended. And of course, you also get the rook on a1 active. If you play bishop c1, then immediately, then the rook on a1 will be passive. Here, the rook on d1 is active. So it's a bit of a talking to all your pieces kind of move, as the Scottish GM Jonathan Rowson always says. You talk to your pieces, and that rook on a1 would be very lonely if you didn't develop it. So first you develop it, and then you're keeping all your options in reserve. And this has got very critical. And Stockfish now plays a very important tactical sequence that actually enables it to keep the balance through a quite unexpected counterattack. It finally takes the pawn on c4, and here AlphaZero plays another move that completely shocked me, and again not a move that the other engines seem to favour. There's all sorts of other ideas. Rook f1, is still a very big idea here, but AlphaZero plays bishop f1.
And that hits the black queen, of course.
Yes, exactly, chasing away the black queen. It's on an active square, and it's also defending this e6 pawn. That's the crucial thing. That's what AlphaZero is looking at. Now, I mean, if you were to play a move like, for example, like Queen c8, just go back passively, then White plays Bishop h3, maybe Knight c5 to defend the e6 pawn, and then Bishop f4. And the idea of Bishop f4 is we're just trying to take that knight on e5. And then play Knight f5 or play g6. And after a move like Queen e8, then b4. This knight on c5 is defending e6. So when it moves away, we'll be able to take on e6. I mean, there's a lot of attack in there. So what Stockfish does is it does everything it can to keep its queen active. First of all, it interposes this little intermediate move here, g6. So White wants to keep the queen active. It plays Queen h6. And now Black keeps its queen active as well, Queen b4. And what is Black aiming? Well, Black's aiming to play Queen b2. As I said, chipping away at the White position, making sure that White's got some thinking to do as well. Well, by having inserted this move g6, Queen h6, Black now also has an idea of Knight g4 when if it needs it. As a sort of defense to chase the queen away from h6 and also get rid of this, very useful dark squared bishop for White. So AlphaZero decides there's no time to waste, and it plays Bishop h3. So this maneuver, Bishop f1, Bishop h3, has had the idea of getting rid of the queen on c4, and now White's threatening this move Knight takes e6, which would threaten mate on g7. And of course the bishop on h3 also defends the g4 square, so knight g4 is no longer a threat. Stockfish continues with its calculation now and plays this move Queen b2. I mean, if Black pauses for a moment, then things can go very wrong. For example, Knight c5 was something I was looking at. Just trying to say to White, well, what do you have in this position? I mean, do you really have any ideas at all? Well, you really do, actually. You've got this typical Sicilian move, Knight d5. So attacking the queen on b4, attacking the bishop on e7. Now, if Black plays e takes d5, then I think that Knight f5 was the key idea. And after g takes f5, then bishop f5. And we are going to deliver mate. No doubt about that one. So, and if Black takes with the bishop on d5, which is maybe the slightly better move, then you play e takes d5 as well. And you're just threatening d takes e6, of course, still chipping away at the king's side. And after, this sort of move, if you play ef, then I'm going d takes e6. There is actually something quite cunning here. Black could try e takes d5. And then I really thought, I said, well, this is just easy, right? E takes f5, then bishop f5, and threatening mate on h7, and it's just going to be completely over. But Black's got a miraculous resource here. I was wondering why, why is my engine, I always analyse first, then type in my lines afterwards. Why is my engine saying this is winning for Black? What on earth is it talking about? But there's a great move here. Do you want to have a go at it, Natasha? Sorry, I'm putting you on the spot like this, but
I'll put you on the spot in future. Okay.
It's well, I'll just explain it. The key idea is that Black's key resource, is that he's got a knight on f3. He's got this knight f3, which is going to be a check. But White's key idea, of course, is to play either a knight h7 or a bishop h7 check. So, is there a way for Black to add extra protection to the h file? It's radical, completely unexpected, and I missed it. So
H4 takes and then the 4.
Exactly, that's the one. Queen h4. Nice, nicely spotted. Queen h4 and then knight f3 check, and Black just remains a piece up. So that was a bit shocking. But as I inadvertently played before, if you just take it nice and easy and play the move bishop d4 first, then you will in the end get in bishop takes f5. And then we're going to be mating you on h7. So that's yeah. I mean, that's just that's an indication of the attack. The one move I thought I quite liked actually, and I wanted to play with with black. And it's actually a very interesting idea, is to play rook fc8. And after knight takes e6, then you've got this defense bishop f8, covering the g7 square. And if I take back with a knight like this. Now the rook is hanging on c8, but I was hoping that well, you know, the queen's active. This bishop on b7 is attacking the e4 pawn. I'll have something like rook takes c3 and queen e4 at times. I thought this might be sufficient counterplay for black. And well, my engine seems to think so too. I think this was one of the typical lines we were looking at: bishop d4, knight e6, knight d5, knight d4, knight e7 check. I mean, I got as far as this, I think, and decided that that I was sure black had sufficient counterplay, but I wasn't quite sure how. I think there were a number of engine games I had that just ended up in a draw from this position. Black gets the exchange back, and also has a few pawns, and the white king is open. So it's just pretty much a balanced position. So so that would have been a possibility as well. But actually, Stockfish goes for the much simpler option here, which is this move queen b2. AlphaZero goes all in with knight takes e6. And yeah, I mean, this looks very, very dangerous, but there's a very cunning little idea here. Black can play knight check, king f1, knight h2 check. And after king g1, it can just keep the checks going with knight f3 check. King h1 is impossible, of course, because of queen h2. Sorry, king h1 is impossible because of queen h2.
Checkmate.
Checkmate. So you have to go to f1. And then black plays knight h2 check again, and it's a draw. So that's a pretty cool little draw there, you know. And as you can see, there was an awful lot of content in there, and some very unusual moves from AlphaZero, very unusual attacking moves. And yeah, I mean, a very good, precise defense from Stockfish. But as you can see, I think this G4 idea has got a lot of mileage in it. Well, as Natasha mentioned, there was in season 15 the Superfinal between Leela Zero and Stockfish took place, and this position was actually specified as the TCEC opening book. So bishop b3 and now knight bd7. And here the book ended. So actually, from this point of view, Stockfish has been given a little less flexibility. It's had its knight developed to d7 very early, but this is probably the main line for black. And Leela Zero carried on with rook c1, just protecting the c4 pawn. But then after black castled, boom, g4, in we go. So, I mean, you can really recognise this.
Exactly the same move as AlphaZero. Maybe it's not too surprising that when you think about it, because Leela was designed based on the theory behind AlphaZero. So Leela is also a neural net-based machine, which has been doing really, really well. So we're following it now in TCEC, so hopefully we'll have some games from Leela as we go. But we found a lot of times that Leela's played similar types of moves to the AlphaZero.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lovely concept, and here actually Stockfish goes all in. Really a amazing idea. Plays knight e5, and after g5 goes knight g4. I mean, these are really risky knights. You know, they're very close to being trapped, or certainly the knight on g4. And actually, as the game continued, Stockfish went for a sharp piece sacrifice. Played queen d8, f3. Where is that knight on g4 going? Well, Stockfish played knight g6, bishop g3, and knight e5, f4. And now, I mean, if you play a move like knight takes c4, then queen h5 is enormous. f5's coming in. Even actually, a huge threat is to play king f2 and rook h1. I mean, I had a good look at this, and this is really not pleasant at all. So, but actually, Stockfish had a completely different idea. It played the move bishop g5. f takes g5, queen takes g5, sacrificing a piece for 2 pawns. Yeah, I'm not super convinced by it, but actually both engines think that that white's got a slight advantage, but nothing enormous. I think the game continued knight e2, knight h4. You know, black manages to swap off the at least one of white's bishops, rook f1 and rook c3, and well, it's quite a little bit dangerous for black again on the king side. And on the king side there, because well, it's opened up white's king side, but there's a big h file and g file there. But Stockfish held this, and it ended up in a draw in the end. But still, you know, very interesting and very, you know, quite fascinating to see that that Leela chose a similar plan. And actually, even funnier than that, just to round off, is that there was another TCEC game, but with not rook e1 in this position, but with d4. And well, in this position, AlphaZero followed, Leela Zero followed a plan developed by the great German player Wolfgang Ullmann, which was putting the queen on e3 and then the knight on d4. And then rook e1 is also very common. But now AlphaZero played, Leela Zero, I keep on getting it wrong, played the move h3, and again in we came with g4 and g5 and h4. And it was another stunning game, you know, really interesting. I love this move, bishop c1, supporting this pawn on g5. Actually, it's similar to the
type move. Whenever I saw it.
Exactly, and again, it's similar to the regrouping that AlphaZero did in our game, where it played rook d1, looking for bishop c1. So you know, it's amazing how these things get echoed. But got g5, b4, c5. You know, really a really great game. You know, and it ended up in a draw. But you know, Leela was pressing all the way. But again, you know, Stockfish defended like a genius again. So so there we are. I mean, I hope you've enjoyed those. I found those really fascinating. I'm not a hedgehog expert by any means. I played those positions very infrequently, so I learned a huge amount, you know, by just looking at what AlphaZero played and trying to understand, you know, what are the ideas behind it. Yeah, fascinating again to see that that a neural net, you know, inspired by the science that DeepMind released in their scientific papers, that it also plays, you know, a very similar plan, and it's not just, you know, a boring plan. It's a very interesting, sharp, aggressive plan that I'm sure, you know, I mean, would be great fun to play. I'd love to play this with white. So watch out, any hedgehog players there, if you ever play against me now. So there we are. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you haven't subscribed to our channel,
please subscribe.
Please. And yeah, and if you haven't got Game Changer yet, then
the time has come.
The time has come indeed. Yeah, please take a look at that, because you know, all the things that we talk about, that we mention here, you know, they've all been examined in just nice detail in Game Changer, you know, with lots of examples, lots of ideas. I mean, all these games are ones that didn't make it into Game Changer. We looked at them, but well, we had so much amazing material we couldn't fit them in. But obviously the themes and the ideas, which is what Game Changer is all about. You know, how does AlphaZero think? How does it play? What are the patterns in its play? Well, you see them always coming back in these extra games that we're showing. So definitely nice to get Game Changer as well. But anyway, keep well, keep safe, and keep on watching this channel, because we've got loads of videos planned. Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you for watching.